Jai Brahmananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Vachakalpatu Vishakri Vasini Devacha. Patita Namaha Vaishnava Namo Namaha. In the last 5 years, I guess it was, trying to be Brahmananda's caregiver, friend, mostly God's sister, and different things would come up. He would call me and ask me if I could help him, and I would go over immediately because whenever I was around Brahmananda, I instantly felt Prabhupada's presence. And I felt like in serving Brahmananda, I was maybe serving Srila Prabhupada as well. And I started to feel very closer to Prabhupada in those years. And of course, Brahmananda telling me so many things, so many wonderful things about Prabhupada's mood of distributing Krishna consciousness to whoever, and talked a lot to me about Prabhupada was never into genders. We were all preachers, whether we were Vaishnava preacher, Vaishnavi preacher, we were all preachers. Prabhupada raised us to be preachers, and he recognized that in me a little bit, and we started these programs where guests would come, and especially young devotees, and I would arrange for them to come into Brahmananda's room, and Brahmananda would speak for hours, and they would be riveted, some with tears in their eyes, because they too would feel that closeness to Prabhupada, and Brahmananda made himself very accessible to devotees with their questions, and all the answers were somehow or another giving this message from Prabhupada to all of us to spread Krishna consciousness, to be always a preacher, to take what we've been given by Srila Prabhupada and to kindly share that with others. I was rereading Swamiji again and came across this Brahmananda remembering. When Swamiji appointed me as temple president, I took it as a challenge. He inspired me to do it, even though I felt somewhat unworthy next to my elder and senior godbrothers. But I knew that he would bless me and teach me how to perform each task properly. I had full faith in his decision. That really inspired me, because in so many ways I don't feel very capable around my esteemed godbrothers and godsisters, but Brahmananda would tell anyone, even if it was their first day in the temple or they had been in the movement for many years, that whatever you want to do for Prabhupada, Prabhupada will empower you, and he will give you the ability. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I am the ability of man. So Prabhupada, he's also in our hearts eternally, and he will give us that ability. Brahmananda would say so many times to so many devotees. Many devotees would ask, well, I'm in school, or I have a business, or I'm a singer, or I'm a dancer, or I'm a this or that. And Brahmananda said Prabhupada's original mood and back in New York was just add Krishna, whether you're this or that or whatever gender you are. By adding Krishna, everything becomes wonderful, simply wonderful. So as years went by, we would have more and more gatherings in Brahmananda's room, and so then we extended those talks in the Balaram Hall. And people would come from all over to hear Brahmananda speak, and Gargamuni would be there as well. And it was everyone, as I felt the presence of Prabhupada, and that was why we loved Brahmananda so much, because he made us feel close to Srila Prabhupada and constantly reminding us to preach, to distribute Krishna consciousness. And whether it was through his books, or that you're a cook, or you're a sweeper, or you're a pujari, or you're a big speaker, or whatever, you can preach for Prabhupada in your own personal way. As Brahmananda became ill, he told me that he used to read from the prayers of Queen Kunti to Srila Prabhupada when he was sick. So I got the great fortune of reading to Brahmananda several times when he was sick, and I just was looking through it last night and seeing this one prayer he specifically liked. Janmaisvarya Shuta Shri Bir A. Yes. No, because I'm not very good at the sense. Yes. Advaitam Vai Twam Akinchana Gocharam. So Queen Kunti prays, "My Lord, your lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. One who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling." From the Bhagavatam 1:8-26. You know, Brahmananda and Gargamuni, they came from a very wealthy family, millions of dollars. Their father in New York was a very notable Jewish businessman. And so the time came for Brahmananda and Gargamuni's father to make the will. And he was he was a lot disturbed that his Jewish sons were visiting the Swamiji because he wanted them to carry on the tradition in their neighborhood and amongst the family. So at some point he said, well, all the money in the will, it's either me or Swamiji. So they picked Swamiji, and the father was very disturbed, and he practically disowned them at that point. And they went to Prabhupada and told Prabhupada, well, now we don't have a home, we don't have a father, we don't have anywhere to go, and we wanted to give all that money to you, Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, Brahmananda would show devotees, he patted their heads and he embraced both of them and he said, that is okay, I will be your father. And from that point on, especially the way when Brahmananda would tell that story, tears would come to his eyes, because he said, I always saw Prabhupada as my father, as well as my spiritual master, as well as my most dear friend. And this became every day for me. Every day I would wake up and I would go see Prabhupada, Swamiji, and ask what he wanted me to do, and I would just do it. For instance, with Africa, no one wanted to go, and Prabhupada turned to Brahmananda, and you will go to Africa, Brahmananda? Yes, Srila Prabhupada. Even though inside he was like, Africa. But he did that because, right, Gargamuni? He never questioned. That was one thing Brahmananda would tell us, that Prabhupada would ask him to do something, and he just didn't question. He would just do it. And also on morning walks, he didn't ask too many philosophical questions, because if you notice, especially in this picture here, there's over 200 photos, actually, of Brahmananda and Prabhupada, and over 200 letters, I believe. And Gargamuni very expertly is going to put those together in a nice media production. And you'll see in most of the photos, especially in this one, Brahmananda's eyes are always focused on Prabhupada. He didn't have much time to talk or ask questions or see who was there. He always had to be watching out for Prabhupada, like his dear, indisputably favorite son. He was just always right behind Prabhupada. And one time he talked about a morning walk, and devotees would get too close to Prabhupada, even though he would try to keep them back, because sometimes Prabhupada would stop suddenly, and then everybody would bump into each other, and sometimes they would bump into Prabhupada. So one morning, he said on a morning walk, some devotee accidentally stepped on Prabhupada's shoe because he was too close, and he said when Prabhupada looked around, the devotee was devastated. But Prabhupada looked around and he nodded his head and he said, that is all right. That is all right. And again, Brahmananda saw how it's something that, someone might take offense to, but Prabhupada never did that. And another thing he always talked about, Brahmananda, is that Prabhupada never complained. which is, it's a very big thing to go all day and not really complain, especially if you're in an elderly body. You have so much to do. I mean, we get wiped out going back and forth to Delhi, and here's Prabhupada flying all over the world. He comes in, he's got press conferences, he's got letters to write, he has getting up at a few hours in the morning, wee hours of the morning to translate, and he rarely complained. Maybe sometime Brahmananda said, oh, I have this sound in my head sometimes. And sometimes this one side of his body, even so many years later, would feel some weakness. But very rarely would he complain, because he would see everything as an opportunity to serve and glorify his spiritual master. So, yes, I was there. Gargamuni called me at about 6 or so in the morning, and Brahmananda had fallen that morning of June 7th. And he had kind of fainted. And so he called me over, and Brahmananda was lying on the floor, and a lot of blood. And so we were trying to clean this blood up. And the only reason I'm mentioning it is because it left a big gash on Brahmananda's head. And so after Brahmananda departed, the FRO and the police, they were thinking, oh, maybe there's some clause in the law there that if there's something that looks a little odd, that we have to do the post-mortem. So that night, Ravi and I rushed over to the SSP, which was a Sunday night, and the SSP says, no, we have to do, no, you can't. He's a very exalted devotee, he's Vaishnava, and he just fainted, and so, and we have some connection at American Embassy, and they can tell you that you don't need to do this, that Brahmananda has been sick for some time, you can see his weight and so many things. So that night, Prabhupada and Krishna arranged for us to be able to contact our contact at the American Embassy, and we hooked her up to the SSP, and she said, no, I'm very familiar with Mr. Sharaf's file. Miss Mahadevi, she's told me that he needs the medical extension, and so you do not need to do this. You don't need to do the post-mortem. So again, even in that situation, right up to the last moment, Prabhupada was so involved with Brahmananda's departure. I'm being told, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go on. I could go on for hours about Brahmananda. Please forgive me for going on, and give the